Some houses keep secrets. Others wait for someone to come home. The rain had been falling for hours by the time I reached the iron gates. Not the gentle kind that tapped against your windshield and faded into the background. This rain came down in silver sheets, turning the narrow road into a ribbon of black glass. My windshield wipers fought a losing battle as I gripped the steering wheel of my aging Honda Civic and squinted through the storm. The address on my phone matched the numbers carved into the stone pillar beside the gate. Moretti Estate. I stared at it for a moment, wondering if I had somehow made a wrong turn. Places like this didn't belong in upstate New York. The mansion rose beyond the gates like something from another century, its warm lights glowing through the rain, reflecting across acres of perfectly manicured grounds. Even from where I sat, I could see towering windows, elegant balconies, and rows of lanterns lining the curved driveway. The entire property looked less like a home and more like a private kingdom. My stomach tightened. I almost turned around. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks earlier through a charitable arts foundation. They wanted a local art teacher to assist with a fundraising program hosted at the estate. The pay was generous. More generous than anything I had been offered before. Enough to cover months of bills. Enough to make saying no impossible. Still, nothing about this place felt normal. I rolled down my window as I approached the security booth. Cold rain splashed against my sleeve immediately. The guard inside glanced at a tablet, then at me. His expression changed. Not hostile, just confused. "Name?" he asked. "Claire Bennett." He looked again, frowned, checked something on the screen, then shook his head. "There must be a mistake." My heart sank. "A mistake? You're not on the guest list." I pulled the email from my phone and held it up. I was invited. The guard studied it for several seconds. Another guard approached from behind. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite understand. Not suspicion, recognition, like they had seen something impossible. "Please wait here," the first guard said. The gates remained closed. Rain drummed against the roof of my car. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I considered leaving. Maybe the invitation had been sent in error. Maybe someone had changed their mind. Maybe I had never belonged here in the first place. Then movement caught my eye. I looked up toward the mansion. High above the entrance stood a figure on the second-floor balcony. A man, tall, motionless, watching. Even through the rain and distance, I felt the weight of his gaze. He wasn't holding an umbrella. Didn't seem to notice the storm at all. The golden light from the mansion spilled behind him, outlining broad shoulders and dark clothing. Something strange happened inside me. Not fear, not recognition. Something older. A feeling I couldn't explain. The man took one step forward and rested a hand against the balcony railing. Then the radio on the security desk crackled. One of the guards immediately straightened. "Open the gate," a voice ordered. Calm, deep, certain. The guards exchanged another glance before pressing a button. Slowly, the massive iron gates began to swing open. I looked back toward the balcony. The man was gone, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I suddenly felt as though someone inside that mansion had been waiting for me to arrive. I should have left the moment the gates opened. Looking back, that was probably the last simple choice I was ever going to have. The driveway curved through the property for what felt like half a mile, winding between ancient oak trees wrapped in soft white lights. Rain shimmered across the stone path, turning every reflection into liquid gold. My tires rolled slowly over the wet pavement as the mansion grew larger with every passing second. By the time I reached the front entrance, I felt impossibly small. The building towered above me, its limestone walls glowing beneath dozens of warm lanterns. Massive columns framed the entrance. Marble steps stretched upward toward double doors carved with intricate designs that looked centuries old. Someone was already waiting beneath the covered entryway. A woman in her 60s stood perfectly still, holding a black umbrella. Her silver hair was pinned neatly behind her ears. Her dark coat looked elegant without trying to be. She smiled as I stepped out of the car. "Miss Bennett," she said. "Welcome." "Thank you." My voice sounded smaller than I intended. "I am Margaret. I manage the estate." Something about her calm demeanor eased the knot in my stomach. "There was some confusion at the gate," I said. "Yes." The smile faded slightly. "That appears to have surprised everyone." Before I could ask what she meant, she gently gestured toward the entrance. "You must be exhausted after the drive." The warmth hit me immediately when the doors opened. The scent of polished wood, fresh flowers, and something faintly sweet drifted through the air. I stepped inside and nearly forgot how to breathe. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead. A grand staircase curved toward the second floor. Paintings lined the walls, illuminated by soft golden light. Every detail felt timeless, elegant without being cold. Yet despite the beauty, an odd feeling settled over me. It was not unfamiliarity. It was the opposite. Certain corners felt strangely recognizable. A grandfather clock standing near the staircase. The shape of a hallway arch. The pattern carved into the railing. I had never been here before. I was sure of that. So why did parts of the mansion feel like fragments of a dream I had forgotten? "Are you all right?" Margaret asked. "Yes." I forced a smile. I just had the strangest feeling. Her expression changed. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. This house has that effect on people. She led me through a series of hallways toward a guest suite overlooking the gardens. We passed several staff members along the way. Most greeted me politely. Others stopped walking altogether. Their eyes lingered a little too long. One young housekeeper nearly dropped a stack of folded linens when she saw me. "I am sorry," she quickly whispered before hurrying away. My confusion deepened. Does everyone here know something I do not? Margaret stopped outside a white door. "You will be staying here during the event." That does not answer my question. For the first time, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. Some questions require time. Then she handed me a room key and quietly walked away. I entered the suite alone. Rain tapped softly against the windows overlooking the grounds. The room was beautiful. Elegant furniture. A fireplace. Fresh flowers on the table. But none of that caught my attention. On the dresser sat a framed photograph. My heart skipped. It showed the mansion covered in snow many years earlier. Standing near the front entrance was a small child wearing a winter coat. The image was blurry. The face impossible to make out. Yet for some reason I could not stop staring at it. Then I noticed something even stranger. Around the child's neck hung a silver necklace. One that looked almost identical to the necklace I had worn every day since I was 12 years old. I stared at the photograph until the rain outside became nothing more than distant static. The silver necklace in the picture looked impossible. Mine was not expensive. It was not unique. 1,000 necklaces probably looked similar. That was the reasonable explanation. So why was my heart beating like it had discovered something important? I stepped closer to the dresser and picked up the frame. The image had faded with age. Snow covered the ground. The mansion looked younger somehow. Brighter. Happier. The child stood near the entrance, bundled in a winter coat that seemed 2 sizes too large. I could not see the face clearly, but the necklace caught the light. The same oval pendant. The same delicate chain. My fingers moved instinctively to my own necklace. I had worn it for 15 years. Ever since the day I woke up in a hospital with almost no memory of the years before. The doctors had blamed trauma. The social workers had called it unusual, but not unheard of. Eventually, life moved forward. Most questions remained unanswered. Until now. A soft knock at the door startled me. I nearly dropped the frame. "Miss Bennet." Margaret called gently. "Dinner is being served." I set the photograph down and followed her through the mansion. The hallways seemed even larger at night. Warm light spilled from crystal fixtures overhead. Shadows stretched across polished floors. Somewhere in the distance, a piano played softly. Every detail felt carefully controlled. Nothing appeared out of place. Yet the feeling from earlier had returned. The strange sensation that I knew this house. Not completely, just pieces of it. Like half-forgotten pages from a dream. We entered a formal dining room large enough to hold 50 guests. Only one seat was occupied. The man from the balcony sat at the far end of the table. Adrian Moretti. I knew the name from newspaper articles and foundation letters. Wealthy, private, influential. His reputation seemed larger than the mansion itself. He looked up as I entered. Green eyes met mine across the room. Sharp, calm, unreadable. "Miss Bennet," he said. His voice carried the same certainty I had heard over the security radio. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me." I took the seat Margaret indicated. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable exactly, just unusual. Adrian watched me the way someone studies a puzzle they have spent years trying to solve. Finally, his gaze dropped. Not to my face. To my necklace. Everything about him changed. It happened so quickly I almost missed it. His shoulders stiffened. His expression froze. Even his breathing seemed to pause. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. My hand moved to the pendant. "This?" "Yes." The single word sounded heavier than it should have. I have had it since I was 12. His eyes never left the necklace. Who gave it to you? I do not know. For the first time since entering the room, Adrian looked genuinely shaken. Not frightened. Not angry. Just stunned. As though I had given the one answer he never expected to hear. The silence stretched between us. Then slowly, very slowly, he stood from his chair. That is impossible, he whispered. And before I could ask what he meant, his eyes shifted toward the doorway behind me. Someone else had entered the room. Someone whose face immediately drained of color the moment they saw the necklace around my neck. The woman standing in the doorway looked to be in her late 70s. Her silver hair was carefully styled. A dark blue dress hung neatly from her slender frame. She carried herself with quiet dignity. But the moment her eyes landed on my necklace, all of that composure disappeared. Her hand flew to her chest. The color drained from her face. For one terrifying second, I thought she might collapse. No, she whispered. The word barely reached my ears. That cannot be. Adrian moved immediately toward her. Sophia. His voice was calm but concerned. Sit down. The woman ignored him. Her eyes remained fixed on the pendant resting against my collarbone. Where did you get that necklace? She asked. It was the second time I had heard that question in less than 5 minutes. I do not know, I admitted. I have had it since I was 12. The room became impossibly still. Sophia looked at Adrian. Adrian looked back at her. Some silent conversation seemed to pass between them. One filled with questions neither of them wanted to ask out loud. 12, Sophia repeated quietly. You remember nothing before that? I shook my head. Only fragments. Her breathing became uneven. What kind of fragments? I hesitated. The memories never made much sense. Small disconnected pieces floating in darkness. Snow, I said slowly. A music box. A fireplace. A woman singing. Sophia closed her eyes. The reaction was immediate. Pain flashed across her face. Real pain. The kind that comes from reopening an old wound. Enough, Adrian said suddenly. His tone was not harsh. It was protective. This conversation can wait. Sophia opened her eyes again. They glistened under the chandelier light. No, she said softly. It has already waited long enough. The words sent a chill through me. I had no idea what was happening anymore. This was supposed to be a simple teaching assignment. Instead, complete strangers were reacting to me as though I had stepped out of a ghost story. Dinner continued after that, but nobody truly ate. The conversation drifted toward the upcoming charity program, local schools, and community projects. Yet every few minutes I caught Adrian watching me. Not in an uncomfortable way. In a confused way. As if every answer only created more questions. By the time dinner ended, exhaustion had settled into my bones. Margaret escorted me back toward the guest wing. The mansion felt quieter now. Most of the staff had retired for the evening. The rain outside had softened into a gentle whisper against the windows. We reached the hallway leading to my suite when something caught my eye. At the far end of the corridor stood a narrow staircase I had not noticed earlier. Unlike the rest of the mansion, this section was dark. No lights. No decorations. Just shadows. What is down there? I asked. Margaret stopped walking. Nowhere you need to be. The answer came too quickly. Is it part of the house? Yes. Then why is it closed? She looked away. Because some doors should remain closed. Then she hurried me toward my room before I could ask another question. Later that night, long after the mansion had gone silent, I stood beside my bedroom window staring into the darkness beyond the gardens. Sleep refused to come. Questions circled endlessly through my mind. The necklace. The photograph. Sophia's reaction. Adrian's silence. Finally, I pulled the curtains shut and turned toward the room. That was when I noticed it. A folded piece of paper resting beneath my door. My pulse quickened. I crossed the room and picked it up. There was no name. No signature. Only a single handwritten sentence. If you want the truth, meet me at the locked staircase at midnight. Midnight arrived slowly. Every minute seemed longer than the last. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the note, while rain traced faint patterns across the dark window. Common sense told me to ignore it. Normal people did not wander through unfamiliar mansions in the middle of the night following anonymous messages. But nothing about this place felt normal anymore. The photograph. The necklace. The missing memories. Every answer seemed hidden just beyond reach. By 11:55, curiosity had won. I slipped out of my room and stepped into the silent hallway. The mansion felt completely different after dark. The warm elegance of earlier had faded into long shadows and quiet echoes. My footsteps sounded unnaturally loud against the polished floor. As I approached the locked staircase, I noticed a single wall lamp glowing nearby. Someone had left it on, waiting. My pulse quickened. The narrow staircase disappeared into darkness above. I checked the hallway behind me. Empty. Whoever had written the note was nowhere in sight. Then I heard it. A faint creak from upstairs. Not alarming. Just enough to tell me someone was there. I climbed slowly. The wooden steps groaned softly beneath my weight. The air felt cooler with every step. At the top, a long corridor stretched ahead. Unlike the rest of the mansion, this section had not been renovated. Dust lingered in corners. Old portraits lined the walls beneath faded wallpaper. The entire floor felt frozen in time. I followed the corridor until I reached a partially open door. Warm light spilled through the gap. Someone was inside. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Hello." I called softly. No answer. I pushed the door open. The room beyond looked like a child's bedroom preserved from another era. A small white bed stood against one wall. Shelves filled with books occupied another. Stuffed animals sat neatly arranged beside a rocking chair. Nothing appeared abandoned. It looked as though someone expected the child to return at any moment. A strange ache formed in my chest. Then I noticed the painting above the fireplace. My breath caught. It showed a young girl sitting beneath a large oak tree. She could not have been older than 8. Blonde hair, green eyes, a silver necklace resting against her collar. The same necklace. I stepped closer. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The shape of her face, the eyes, even the small dimple near her smile. The girl looked like me, or rather, like a younger version of me. "I knew you would find this room eventually." The voice came from behind me. I spun around. Sophia stood in the doorway. Her expression carried sadness I could not understand. "Who is she?" I asked immediately. Sophia looked toward the painting. For several seconds, she remained silent. "A child we lost many years ago," she finally said. "Then why does she look exactly like me?" The older woman's eyes filled with emotion. She opened her mouth to answer. Before a single word could leave her lips, another voice echoed down the corridor. "Adrian." "Sophia." The warning in his tone stopped her instantly. He appeared beside the doorway, his gaze shifting between us. Then his eyes settled on the painting. For the first time since meeting him, Adrian looked genuinely afraid of what might happen next. The room seemed smaller after Adrian spoke. The silence pressed against the walls like a living thing. Sophia lowered her eyes, and for the first time I realized she was afraid of him. Not because he was cruel, because he was carrying something too heavy to face. "You knew I would find this place," I said quietly. Adrian stepped into the room, his gaze moving across the old furniture before settling on the painting above the fireplace. "I hoped you would not." "Why?" He exhaled slowly. "Because some answers change everything." The rain tapped softly against the distant windows. Somewhere below us, an old clock chimed midnight. I looked back at the painting. The resemblance was undeniable. "Who is she?" I asked again. "Tell me her name." Neither of them answered immediately. Sophia finally spoke. Her name was Lily. The name sent an unexpected shiver through me. It felt familiar, not like hearing a stranger's name, more like hearing a song you have not heard in years. "Lily," I repeated. "What happened to her?" Sophia's eyes filled with sadness. "She disappeared 15 years ago." My heart skipped. 15 years. The exact number that separated me from my missing memories. The coincidence felt impossible. "Disappeared from here?" I asked. Sophia nodded. "One winter night." I stared at the painting again. My pulse grew louder. "And you think she is me?" Adrian immediately answered. No, the certainty in his voice surprised me. "I do not think anything yet. That is not what everyone else seems to believe." He ran a hand through his dark hair and looked away. For the first time, the composed businessman vanished. Beneath the confidence was a man struggling to make sense of something impossible. "Belief is dangerous," he said quietly. "Facts matter." "Then what are the facts?" I asked. His eyes met mine. "The facts are that a girl disappeared from this house 15 years ago. The facts are that she wore a necklace identical to yours. The facts are that you arrived here with no memory before age 12. He paused. "And the facts are that none of that proves anything." I wanted to argue. I wanted certainty. Instead, I felt more lost than ever. A sudden sound interrupted the conversation. A faint thump somewhere down the corridor. Adrian's attention shifted instantly. Not alarmed. Focused. Listening. The sound came again. Then silence. Sophia frowned. There should not be anyone up here. Adrian walked toward the doorway and glanced into the hall. Whatever he saw made his expression harden. Stay here. What is it? I asked. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he crossed the hallway and disappeared around the corner. Seconds later, he returned carrying something. A leather folder. Old. Dust-covered. His jaw tightened as he looked at it. Where did you find that? Sophia whispered. Outside the door. Adrian handed the folder to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Several yellowed documents rested inside. Newspaper clippings. Photographs. Notes. Then a single photograph slipped free and landed at my feet. I picked it up before anyone could stop me. The image showed a group of people standing on the mansion's front steps 15 years earlier. My breath caught. Near the center stood the little girl from the painting. And beside her was a teenage boy, older by only a few years. Dark hair. Green eyes. There was no mistaking him. The boy standing next to Lily was Adrian. The photograph felt heavier than paper should have. My fingers tightened around its edges as I stared at the younger version of Adrian standing beside the little girl. He could not have been older than 17. His arm rested protectively around her shoulders. Both of them were smiling at the camera. Not posing. Not performing. Genuinely happy. It was the first time I had ever seen Adrian look carefree. You knew her, I whispered. Adrian's eyes remained fixed on the photograph. For a moment, he looked like that teenager again instead of the powerful man who owned the mansion. Yes, he said quietly. Sophia lowered herself into the rocking chair beside the window. The old wood creaked beneath her weight. They were inseparable. I looked between them. Then why has nobody told me any of this before now? Adrian answered without hesitation. Because none of us know who you are. The words stung more than I expected. He must have noticed because his expression softened slightly. I am not trying to be cruel, Claire. Hearing my name sounded strangely intimate in the quiet room. I am trying to be careful. I looked down at the photograph again. The little girl seemed almost alive beneath the faded print. The necklace around her neck reflected a tiny point of sunlight captured 15 years ago. Tell me about her, I said. Adrian was silent for several seconds. Then he walked toward the fireplace and rested one hand against the mantel. Lily arrived here when she was 6. His voice had changed. Lower. More distant. She was not part of the family by blood. Her parents worked for my father. After an accident took their lives, she stayed here. Sophia smiled sadly. The house became brighter after that. Adrian nodded. She never stopped asking questions. Never stopped exploring. Every locked door became a challenge. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. That sounds familiar. Adrian glanced at me. For the briefest moment, something almost warm appeared in his eyes. Then it disappeared. Yes, he said softly. It does. The room fell quiet again. Rain continued tapping against the windows. Somewhere below, another clock marked the passing hour. What happened the night she disappeared? I finally asked. The smile vanished from Sophia's face. Adrian looked away. The atmosphere changed immediately. Every trace of warmth drained from the room. Nobody knows, Sophia said. One moment she was here, then she was gone. People searched for years. Adrian's voice sounded tight now. Nothing was ever found. My stomach twisted. 15 years. The same missing years from my own life. The same necklace. The same age. The same unexplained absence. Logic told me there could be another explanation. Yet the coincidences were piling up faster than I could ignore them. Suddenly a strange sensation swept through me. Not pain. Not fear. A memory. Brief and fragmented. Snow falling beneath lantern light. Laughter echoing through a hallway. A boy's voice calling my name. I gasped. The image vanished instantly. Claire, Sophia asked. I pressed a hand against my temple. I saw something. Adrian took one step forward. What did you see? My heart raced. The memory was already fading. Snow, I whispered. Lanterns. Someone calling my name. The room became completely silent. Adrian's face lost all color. What name? He asked. I closed my eyes, reaching desperately for the disappearing memory. The voice echoed once more inside my head. Clearer this time. Familiar. Then I opened my eyes and looked directly at Adrian. It was not Claire. The silence that followed felt endless. Sophia gripped the armrests of the rocking chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Adrian did not move at all. He stood frozen beside the fireplace, staring at me as though the entire world had suddenly shifted beneath his feet. What was the name? Sophia whispered. My pulse hammered in my ears. The memory was already slipping away, dissolving like fog under sunlight. I closed my eyes, trying desperately to hold on to it. I could still hear the voice. Young, warm, familiar, calling out through falling snow. Lily, I said softly. The room seemed to exhale all at once. Sophia covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Adrian lowered his head for a brief second before looking away. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. The reaction alone told me everything. You really think I am her? I said. Adrian answered immediately. No, his voice was firm. I think you remembered a name. Nothing more. I stared at him in disbelief. After everything that has happened? Especially after everything that has happened. He stepped closer. People see what they want to see, Claire. Hope can be dangerous. The words sounded rehearsed, like something he had repeated to himself for years. Sophia slowly stood from the chair. Adrian. No, his tone remained calm, but final. Not until we know the truth. I should have felt relieved. Instead, frustration surged through me. Everyone else seemed to possess pieces of a puzzle that belonged to my life. Yet I remained the only person locked outside the answer. Then help me find it, I said. Adrian studied me carefully. The storm outside had finally weakened. Moonlight filtered through the old windows, casting silver patterns across the floor. For a moment, his expression softened. That is exactly what I am trying to do. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. Before I could respond, Sophia opened the leather folder again. Her trembling fingers sorted through several old documents until she found a folded sheet near the bottom. The moment she saw it, her eyes widened. This was not here before. Adrian crossed the room immediately. What is it? She unfolded the paper. The edges looked old, but not 15 years old. More recent. Someone had placed it inside the folder deliberately. Sophia read the first line and went completely pale. Sophia? Adrian asked. She handed him the page without speaking. His jaw tightened as he scanned the contents. For the first time since I met him, genuine alarm appeared in his eyes. What does it say? I asked. Neither answered. Adrian. Slowly he looked up. The room suddenly felt colder. Someone inside this house has been hiding information about Lily's disappearance. My stomach dropped. Who? He glanced at the paper again. That is the problem. His eyes lifted toward the doorway. The letter was written by someone who claims to know exactly what happened 15 years ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Then we can finally get answers. Adrian's expression darkened. Not if they are already gone. The letter changed everything. One piece of paper had done what 15 years of searching could not. It had turned a mystery into something far more unsettling. Someone knew the truth. Someone had been close enough to place that message inside a hidden folder in a locked section of the mansion. And according to Adrian, that person was gone. What do you mean gone? I asked. Adrian folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the folder. The note was signed. By who? Sophia answered before he could. Thomas Reed. The name meant nothing to me, but judging from their faces, it meant everything to them. Who was he? I asked. Adrian looked toward the rain-streaked window. He worked here for over 30 years. Groundskeeper. Caretaker. He knew every room in this house. A knot formed in my stomach. And where is he now? He retired 6 months ago. Then call him. Adrian's silence lasted too long. Finally, Sophia lowered her eyes. Thomas passed away 3 weeks ago. The words settled over the room like cold fog. Any hope of immediate answers seemed to disappear with them. Then how did this letter get here? I asked. Nobody had an answer. Adrian took the folder from Sophia and examined the papers again. His focus sharpened. The uncertainty was gone. In its place was determination. Someone wanted us to find this tonight. Why? I asked. Because they knew you were coming. The statement sent a chill through me. I stared at him. That is impossible. Is it? Adrian's green eyes locked onto mine. The moment you arrived, people started reacting. The guards. The staff. Sophia. Me. Someone may have been watching all of it. The old room suddenly felt less safe. Shadows stretched across the walls. Every creak of the mansion seemed louder. More intentional. I looked toward the hallway. You think someone is still here? Adrian did not answer directly. I think someone knows more than they should. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room. For a split second, the painting above the fireplace seemed alive. The little girl's eyes reflected the light exactly the way mine had earlier in the mirror. My chest tightened. Another memory surfaced. Stronger this time. I saw myself running through a hallway lined with portraits. Snow boots pounding against polished floors. Laughter. Excitement. Then a door. A specific door painted white. I blinked and the image vanished. Claire. Sophia asked softly. I remember something. Both of them froze. What? Adrian asked. A door. The answer sounded ridiculous even to me. White. Upstairs somewhere. Adrian exchanged a look with Sophia. The reaction was immediate. Recognition. There is a white door, Sophia whispered. At the end of the east wing. My pulse quickened. Take me there. Adrian hesitated. It has been locked for years. Then unlock it. For several seconds, he simply stared at me. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brass key. The sight of it made my breath catch. Because before he even spoke, I somehow knew exactly which door it opened. The brass key looked ordinary. Small. Worn. Tarnished by years of use. Yet the moment I saw it resting in Adrian's hand, a strange certainty settled over me. I knew that key. Not logically. Not consciously. But somewhere beneath 15 years of missing memories, I knew exactly where it belonged. None of us spoke as we left the old bedroom. The mansion felt impossibly quiet. The storm had finally passed, leaving only the occasional drip of rainwater outside. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows as we moved through the upper corridors. Adrian walked ahead carrying the key. Sophia followed beside me. Every step seemed to pull me closer to something I had been searching for without realizing it. The east wing sat at the far end of the estate. Unlike the grand halls below, this section felt forgotten. Dust lingered along the baseboards. The wallpaper had faded with age. Portraits stared down from the walls, their painted eyes following us through the silence. Then I saw it. The white door. My heart stopped. It stood exactly where I remembered, at the end of the hallway. Simple. Unremarkable. Yet the sight of it hit me harder than anything else had so far. Memories flickered behind my eyes. Small hands reaching for the brass handle. Laughter echoing nearby. The smell of fresh paint. I staggered slightly. Sophia immediately reached for my arm. Claire, I know this place. The words escaped before I could stop them. Adrian stared at the door. That should not be possible. But his voice lacked conviction. Deep down, he was beginning to believe it too. He stepped forward and inserted the key into the lock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft click echoed through the hallway. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Adrian hesitated. Not because he feared what was behind the door, because he had spent 15 years avoiding it. Slowly, he pushed it open. Cool air drifted from the room beyond. Moonlight filtered through tall windows covered by white curtains. I entered first. The moment I crossed the threshold, a sharp ache flashed through my chest. The room was larger than I expected. Shelves filled with books lined one wall. A small desk sat beneath the window. Toys rested neatly inside a glass cabinet. Nothing looked abandoned. Everything looked preserved. Protected. Waiting. Nobody has touched this room, Sophia whispered. Not since she disappeared. My eyes moved slowly across the space. Then they landed on the far corner. A music box sat atop a white dresser. My breath caught instantly. Without thinking, I crossed the room. Claire, Adrian said quietly. I barely heard him. My hands were already reaching for the music box. The moment my fingers touched the polished wood, another memory exploded into focus. A winter evening. Snow outside the windows. A teenage boy sitting on the floor beside me. Green eyes. Dark hair. Smiling as the music played. You always hide things in the same place, Lily. The memory vanished. I gasped and nearly dropped the box. Adrian had gone completely still. What did you just say? He asked. I looked up at him, trembling. I did not say it. My eyes drifted toward the dresser, toward the bottom drawer, toward a place I somehow knew better than my own apartment. But I know where she hid something. My eyes remained fixed on the dresser. Every instinct told me there was something hidden there. Not a guess, not a theory, a certainty. The feeling was so strong it frightened me. Claire, Adrian said carefully. How do you know? I swallowed hard. I do not. The answer sounded absurd even to me. I just do. The room had become completely silent. Moonlight spilled across the floorboards. Dust floated through silver beams of light. Somewhere in the distance, Another grandfather clock marked the passing minutes. 15 years of unanswered questions seemed to be holding their breath alongside us. Slowly, I crossed the room. My hands trembled as I knelt beside the white dresser. The wood felt cool beneath my fingertips. For a brief moment, another memory flashed behind my eyes. Small hands, younger hands, pulling open the same drawer, hiding something quickly before footsteps approached. The image vanished before I could grab hold of it. There, I whispered. Adrian moved closer. Sophia remained frozen near the doorway. I pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside were old sketchbooks, ribbons, and several neatly folded sweaters preserved by time. Nothing unusual, nothing hidden. Doubt immediately crept into my mind. Maybe I was imagining all of this. Maybe everyone had become so desperate for answers that we were seeing patterns where none existed. Then my fingers brushed against the back panel. Something felt wrong. The wood shifted slightly beneath the pressure. My pulse quickened. There is a compartment. Adrian crouched beside me. Together we carefully examined the panel. A small latch sat hidden along the edge, nearly invisible beneath years of dust. Adrian pressed it gently. A soft click echoed through the room. The compartment opened. Inside rested a single object. A journal. The cover was faded blue leather. Time had worn the corners smooth. My breath caught immediately. I knew that journal. Not because I had seen it before, because something deep inside me recognized it. Sophia gasped. It is hers. Adrian carefully lifted the journal from the compartment. For a moment, none of us spoke. The discovery felt too important, too fragile. Finally, he opened the first page. The handwriting inside was neat and careful, childlike in places, more mature in others. Years of entries filled the pages. Memories, thoughts, drawings, pieces of a life preserved in ink. Then Adrian stopped turning pages. His eyes locked onto a particular entry. Every trace of color disappeared from his face. What is it? I asked. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he handed the journal to me. My hands shook as I looked down. The date at the top of the page was 15 years old. Written beneath it were words that made my heart stop. If anything happens to me, Adrian must never blame himself. It was not his fault. I stared at the sentence. The handwriting looked familiar, uncomfortably familiar, as though I had spent years seeing it without realizing it. Then my gaze drifted to the signature at the bottom of the page. Lily. The room spun. A sharp ache exploded behind my eyes. Images flooded forward all at once. Snow, lanterns, laughter, a music box, Adrian's voice, this room, this house, this life. And as the memories came rushing back, I finally remembered the one thing everyone had been missing. I had not disappeared alone. The memories arrived like pieces of shattered glass finally finding their place. Not all at once. Not perfectly, but enough. I dropped into the chair beside the desk, breathing hard as fragments of the past flooded through me. Snow-covered gardens. Holiday lights wrapped around the trees. Sophia reading beside the fireplace. Adrian teaching me how to ride a bicycle along the estate paths. The mansion had not been a mystery to me once. It had been home. Tears blurred my vision. Lily, Sophia whispered. The sound of that name no longer felt distant. It felt familiar. Mine. Adrian stood motionless across the room. For years he had searched for answers. Now the truth stood in front of him, and he seemed almost afraid to reach for it. I remember, I said softly. Not everything, but enough. Sophia covered her mouth as tears slipped down her cheeks. Tell us. I looked toward the window. Dawn was still hours away. The moonlight painted silver lines across the floor. Somewhere deep inside, another memory surfaced. The final night. The night everything changed. I left, I whispered. Adrian frowned. You were taken. I slowly shook my head. No, the certainty surprised even me. I left willingly. The room fell silent. That is impossible, Adrian said. You were 9 years old. I know. More images surfaced. A man kneeling beside me. Gentle eyes. A familiar voice. No fear. No panic. A promise. Someone came for me, I said. Someone I trusted. Sophia exchanged a stunned look with Adrian. Who? She asked. I squeezed my eyes shut, reaching for the fading memory. A name hovered just beyond reach. Frustratingly close. Then another detail emerged. He worked here. Adrian's expression darkened immediately. A staff member? Yes. The answer felt right. He told me there was something important I needed to see. Something about my parents. Sophia sank slowly into the rocking chair. Dear God. Adrian stepped closer. Claire. Lily. Are you saying someone convinced you to leave the estate? I think so. My voice trembled. I remember trusting him. The journal still rested open in my lap. Suddenly, a folded paper slipped from between 2 pages and drifted onto the floor. None of us had noticed it before. Adrian picked it up carefully. The paper was yellowed with age, hidden deep inside the journal all these years. His eyes moved across the words. Then he froze. What is it? I asked. Adrian looked up slowly. The shock in his expression was unlike anything I had seen before. This was written the day before you disappeared. Sophia stood immediately. What does it say? Adrian swallowed hard. Then he read the first line aloud. Tomorrow I am finally going to meet my real father. The words echoed through the room long after Adrian finished reading them. Tomorrow I am finally going to meet my real father. My eyes remained fixed on the page. The handwriting was mine. The excitement behind the words was unmistakable. 15 years ago, a little girl had written that sentence believing she was about to discover where she came from. Instead, she had lost everything she knew. I remember him, I whispered. The memory arrived slowly this time. Not fragmented, not broken, complete. A man with kind eyes. A warm smile. Someone who knew exactly what to say to a child who spent her life wondering about her parents. He had promised answers. He had promised family. He had promised that after one short trip, I would return home with the truth. Sophia lowered her head. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. Adrian remained completely still. You trusted him, he said softly. Yes. I looked toward the window as dawn began to brighten the horizon beyond the estate. Because he knew things nobody else knew. Things about my mother. Things about my father. Another memory surfaced. A train station. Snow falling. The man kneeling beside me. Then confusion. Crowds. Sirens in the distance. A hospital. Questions I could not answer. Memories slipping away one by one until only darkness remained. He was not my father, I said. Was he? Adrian slowly shook his head. No, he held up the final page hidden inside the journal. There was another note attached behind it. One that none of us had noticed before. The handwriting belonged to Thomas Reed, the old caretaker, the man whose letter had started everything. Adrian read the final message aloud. Thomas explained that years ago, he discovered someone had been deceiving Lily. A stranger had convinced her he was related to her. By the time the truth was uncovered, she had already vanished from the estate. Authorities searched. Families searched. Everyone searched. Then years passed. Records disappeared. Memories faded. Until eventually only hope remained. The room fell silent. 15 years of mystery reduced to one heartbreaking misunderstanding. Yet somehow I did not feel sadness. I felt peace. Because for the first time in my life, I knew who I was. I was Claire Bennett. I was Lily. I was the girl who had been lost. And I was the woman who had found her way home. Hours later, the sun rose over the estate. Golden light spilled across the gardens. Staff members gathered quietly near the entrance. Sophia stood beside me on the staircase. Adrian waited below. Neither of us spoke for several moments. Words seemed too small for everything that had happened. Finally, he held out a small object. The brass key. This belongs to you, he said. I looked at it, then at him. What does it open? A faint smile appeared on his face. The first genuine smile I had ever seen from him. Whatever future you choose. My eyes filled with tears. Not because I had recovered the past. Because I no longer feared the future. I accepted the key and stepped forward. Morning sunlight filled the mansion behind us. For the first time in 15 years, the house no longer felt haunted by questions. It felt alive. And as I crossed the final step, I realized something simple and beautiful. Sometimes home is not the place you remember. Sometimes home is the place that never forgot you.